The views expressed on the Warren and Bradley Show are not necessarily those held by the hosts, Warren and Bradley, nor those of the proprietors of the website, warrenandbradley.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire!
Let's make some magic.
It is magic time! Hello, and welcome once again to the Warren and Bradley Show. I am one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
I'm the other host, Warren Van.
It is episode 48 of the Warren and
Yeah,
Bradley Show.
I think that's right. I'm pretty sure the last one was 47.
Getting pretty close to 52 episodes. One whole year of Warren and Bradley Show joyous celebration.
Are we going to do something big?
I don't know.
We have the big live show
Yeah.
at the Tacoma Dome that we've been talking about?
We should. Maybe it'll be at the Bagelry or standing on the corner where I smoke and look at street freaks and people can come up and harass us in real time. I had some things that I was going to complain about today. Surprise for once.
I think the audience expects that.
Kind of expect that in the opening segment. Number one, we mentioned, I don't know how many weeks ago, but the city of Bellingham, the nanny state asshole, let's put our noses into everyone else's business.
Yeah.
City Council had passed the plastic bag ban in Bellingham. And I bitched about it before, and I was bitching about it mostly coming from the angle of how the hell can they tell private businesses that they can't provide plastic bags for their customers?
Yeah.
Why is it the City Council's business? But a new angle occurred to me the other day.
Oh.
Something that is even more obnoxious. We've started the rainy season in Bellingham now,
Yes.
which lasts for 9 months until July 5th. Basically, almost every day from between now and then, it will rain at least a little.
Yeah.
We don't always have torrential downpours or anything, but there's always going to be a little bit of mist, a little bit of
Rarely is
drizzle.
it a torrential downpour. It's always just there's a little bit of moisture coming out of the sky.
But the other day, it was raining very, very hard, and I actually got off work early because it was raining so hard. And I decided, hey, I'm going to go to the used bookstore and find some books.
Oh,
And so I went over to the used bookstore. I walked. I was wet by the time I got there. It was raining very hard. Got a couple books. Was pleased with my purchases. And then realized as I was being rung up that there were no bags. And I could not get a bag. And it was raining like a bastard. And I had books, which are made of paper.
Yeah.
And I was already soaked through to the skin. And so I'm sitting there with these books thinking that I have probably a 10-minute walk home. By the time I get home, my books will be a sodden mass and they will be ruined and unreadable. And that's exactly what happened. The city council decides we live in a place where it rains every fucking day. If you're buying some like electronics, anything that's at all fragile or could be ruined by the rain, even if you're just going grocery shopping and you have your fucking paper bags that you have to pay 5 cents for, that's the other thing. Not only are they saying that you can't provide plastic bags for people, but you can't provide paper bags for free. You have to charge people for the paper bags. How the fuck can a local government tell businesses that they have to sell something to people, that they can't give something away?
I'll tell you what happened to me the other day.
Yes.
I was at another used bookstore in town in Fairhaven, and I bought a book, and it was kind of drizzling out, and I was taking a long walk back, and the owner just gave me a plastic bag and said, like, we'll just keep this between you and me. And I was like, yeah, wink and nod.
They had some illicit stash of plastic bags put away somewhere.
Oh, it was great. I was so pleased, and we both like had this like great warm feeling of like rebellion against like the totalitarian state.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, my bookstore proprietor was not such a rebel.
I think you may have gone to a certain bookstore where the staff and management of that bookstore kind of feels like Nazis, and they're very angry people.
They don't seem very appreciative of anyone actually coming into the bookstore.
It's a very lovely bookstore.
We won't mention the name.
We're not going to mention the name of this bookstore.
It's a good store.
It's an excellent bookstore.
Has excellent
selection.
Excellent selection.
Excellent quality of books. Just the most surly, angry, bitter staff.
You're annoying them by shopping there, basically.
Yes, basically, yeah. So I can see how they might not want to help you out.
It's just, what is the legal precedent for this?
Oh, I mean, they can pass any sort of law they want to, basically.
They can't, though. I mean, I know the federal government is constrained by the Constitution. The federal government is not supposed to be able to tell anyone that they have to purchase anything. That was the huge thing with Obamacare, where people were using constitutional arguments to argue against Obamacare.
Yes.
Are local governments not constrained by the Constitution?
Well, theoretically, they're not forcing you to purchase anything. They're just prohibiting the purchase of one thing.
Yes, but they're forcing private businesses to sell something.
But they aren't.
Well, they are.
Yeah, they are implicitly.
I think if somebody were to actually challenge these laws in court, that they would be overturned because they're ridiculous. They're fucking ridiculous.
On what basis, though?
On the basis that, okay, so you can say that they can pass any law they want, but where is the line drawn then?
The line...
They could say, oh, we don't like fur, so we're not allowing any stores to sell fur within the city limits.
I think they could do that, yeah, as far as I know.
But how is this possible? What fucking country do we live in? This is ridiculous. It's so obnoxious to me.
It is, and well, people just have to revolt.
Yeah, but nobody ever does.
Nobody ever does. Everyone
I
just
bitch
bows
about
down.
it every once in a while, and I'm surprised by how few people actually care. Either they're idiots and think that it's a good idea that bags were banned, or if they're annoyed, they're just like, meh, what are you going to do? Meh, meh. It's just, it's everything. It's the smoking bans. It's all this nanny state stupid bullshit. It's the smug city council feeling like, oh, we've made a difference. What the fuck difference does banning plastic bags do anyway?
It makes people feel in the city council
all
better
this
about
shit
themselves.
is just like, it's masturbation. People jack themselves off and pat each other on the back and think that they've done something good. I'm sick of it.
I went somewhere yesterday and I remember I was going to go buy something, and I remember taking a plastic bag and putting it in my pocket and walking around with a big bag bulging out and thinking this is a weird thing to do. To have to go to the store and then bring a bag.
Well, and I actually broke down and bought some of those stupid cloth bags to have in my truck with me if I ever go grocery shopping, because the paper bags don't work. They don't have handles. They rip. It's just ridiculous.
Well, those paper bags, that's the handle's just kind of glued on there on the side.
Yeah, they just rip right off.
They just rip right off. Yeah.
So I have some of those in my truck. So if I do go to the grocery store, I have those to take with me. But if I walk somewhere and buy a bushel of paper or something, and it's raining, I'm not going to carry plastic bags in my pocket with me. It's just, these are the stupid contortions that they force people to be.
There should be some sort of exception in the law for purchasing paper goods in a place that rains all the time.
They don't care. There's all these little nuisance laws that you're never going to get some sort of initiative effort into overturning these laws, because they're not enough of a thing for people to get behind. There's Tim Eyman in Seattle is always trying to get these voter initiatives going for things, but
incremental.
It's this incremental bullshit that kind of adds up after a while, and suddenly you look around and realize that you're living in Nazi Germany circa 1939.
Well, there's a lot of increments that have to go on before we get to that point.
Well, once we start.
But you're smoking a cigarette right now, right?
Shh.
I know. This is like radio theater.
Uh-huh.
But did you have to go to another nation to purchase those cigarettes?
I had to go to the Lummi Nation.
You're forced to another nation to purchase your cigarettes. You got books that are going to get wet.
Yeah.
It's all these little things. It's just quality of life issues.
And that's the big thing that pisses me off. I don't care about the big issues for the most part. I mean, I do on an intellectual level. I can say, okay, I don't agree, or I do agree with a certain issue. But it's the little things that are the everyday... It's everyday life. It's the things that make life worth living or not.
Or tolerable.
Or just these little irritating, niggling things that get on your... it just drives me insane. Running my errands today, confronted by more obnoxious people as usual. Have you run across or come across this kind of person where your existence is an affront to them?
Yeah.
Just the fact that you're alive pisses them off.
Yeah.
I went into the Bagelry and it was very busy. And there's a certain seat that I like to have normally by the window so I can look at people, but that was taken. And so they have this kind of bar seating up against these other windows, and kind of like a lunch counter sort of thing. And there was a seat open, or a couple seats open. There was this one old hippie dude with a ponytail and some sort of knit cap sitting there reading a newspaper. There were a couple seats open next to him, so I was like, all right, this is where I'm going to have to sit. So I go up there. I wasn't sitting right next to him. I was one seat away. But as I pulled the seat out and started sitting, he was like... I gave this huge sigh, this was just a huge imposition to him that I was sitting anywhere near him. So I gave him a look and just sort of stared at him for a good 30 seconds, waiting for him to look at me. And he was very studiously not meeting my gaze. So I went back, started drinking my coffee. When the person came up and gave me my food, I started eating. He looked over at me again and went, and sighed again. So I said, is there a problem? And he went, no. It's a busy store. What are you talking about? All right. And I just, started eating.
Oh, my. At
one point in during the meal, a little bit of a runny nose. It's kind of cold out. So I took
not rocket right on him.
No. I took one of my napkins and just very delicately gave a little, blew my nose and kind of wiped it. It wasn't a huge honking nose blowing.
You didn't look at it afterwards, did you?
No. Okay, I just kind of it was a little discreet wipe, Yeah. I did that. I crumpled up the napkin and put it down. He looked over at me and went, "That is so rude." I looked at him. It's like, no, it's more rude for you to point out how rude you think that is.
Yeah.
And again, he said nothing and went back to sighing every 2 minutes and pointedly looking over at me. Finally, I was like, you're free to go sit somewhere else.
Yeah.
If this is such an imposition to you to have me sitting next to you or near you, I'm not even in the same seat. And he was like, I'm trying to read my paper. How am I preventing you from reading your fucking newspaper? I'm not trying to talk to you. You're the one making comments to me, looking over at me and sighing like a cow. Just shut the fuck up and read if you want to read. It was just, what is wrong with people?
Should challenge him to a fight.
Yeah, I would have beat the shit out of him. Yank that ponytail. If you're going to fight people in the street, don't grow a ponytail. He was wearing Birkenstocks with socks. He had kind of weird capri pants. And some sort of knit cap, as I mentioned before, ponytail, earring. He was one of those really obnoxious, 60s hippie that never grew up.
Well, I can see his perspective if I was in a restaurant that wasn't crowded and I was sitting at a bar area like that and somebody sat up right next to me.
Right.
I would be kind of all right, that's annoying.
Well, yeah, it's one thing if you kind of jostle into them and just...
But it's another thing. There's a seat between you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing... You can't complain if there's a seat
what am I
between
gonna
you and
do?
a bar.
It's just irritating. And then there was this little dude... I was going to the Arco gas station where it's, 10 cents cheaper than a Shell or a Chevron or something.
This economy, you have to save that 10 cents.
And of course, there's a big line of people and everyone's waiting and pissed off.
I'm going to get that 10 cent cheaper gas.
And so I finally get up to a pump. I got out to the little self-pay thing and put my money in to get the gas.
Yeah.
And as I was putting the money in, it's pump in use. It's what are you talking about? I wasn't talking to the machine, but I was thinking, what are you talking about? I just pulled up to it. Look over, there's this dude on a motorcycle that snuck in by my truck and started filling his motorcycle with gas. So I walk over there and I look at the guy. He looks like fucking Woody Allen. He's this tiny little dude with glasses. He's a little nerdly guy, but he's wearing leathers and he's got this giant Harley Davidson.
Oh, well, he's overcompensating.
Well, I've seen, over the hill dudes who are having their midlife crisis buy a motorcycle and drive around and think they're in
Sons of Anarchy.
Easy Rider.
Yeah, Easy Rider. Thank you.
Or Sons of Anarchy is a good example. But this guy was he was fucking Woody Allen. He looked like he was from the East Village or something. And it was ridiculous. And so I go up, I'm like, my truck was here. He's like, just a minute. I'm filling my motorcycle. I was here first. What are you doing? I put money in first. So? You can't just sneak in and do this. He's like, just a minute. And he's having all this trouble with the gas can. He's trying to open it. And he's like, oh my God. Oh, Jesus. He puts the gas nozzle in there and starts filling it. It just goes and overflows everywhere. And he's like, oh my God.
He's never used a motorized vehicle before.
It seemed as though he had maybe just purchased the motorcycle. His leathers were brand new. They probably still had the tags on them. And then some other woman jostled into him and he went, oh God, and spilled more of the gas everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, come on, hurry up here. I'm waiting. Because I was already pissed and there was nothing I can do. I'm not going to yank the gas nozzle out of his hand or something. I could have just pushed
Spray
him
in his face and then set him on fire.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah,
but finally he got to the point where it's like, I'm filling my tank with gas. Just a minute here. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. You're the one who snuck ahead of me in the line and you're screaming at me.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with people.
That's rough, man.
The little Jewish biker.
You did. That was a very good, like, little Jewish biker voice.
Oh,
I gotta say. So you put money in. Did he use your money?
No. I was trying to put money in, but it said the pump was already in use.
Oh.
So he had somehow snuck in there right before it was just. I mean, who does that? Who has the audacity to do that? Especially if you're a wussy little guy on a motorcycle. I could have just broken him over my knee.
It's tough. I'll tell you what else happened this week.
Yeah.
Speaking of, like, awkward confrontations.
Right.
I went up to Whistler.
Yes.
The ski resort.
You and your little vacation.
For my little vacation. Completely off season up there, apparently.
Right. Is there any snow up there right now?
No.
Okay. Whistler, for those of you who don't know, is a fancy ski resort in Canada.
And I think it's North America's largest ski resort or something like that.
But it's in Canada.
It's in Canada. It's where the Olympics, a lot of that happened in 2010.
Right.
All the skiing and that went on there. Apparently they have a summer season and then they have a winter season, and we were right in between, so they were kind of like renovating the area as we were there, and it was raining very hard. So it wasn't that pleasant. But coming back to the border, they blocked off the road. We were diverted to the other border crossing in Blaine. Did you hear about this?
Oh, there was a shooting at the Peace Arch border
that
crossing.
happened like 15 minutes before we got to the border.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we just barely got through.
It was at the Peace Arch one? Or
It was at the Peace Arch.
Okay, yeah.
So we got diverted to the truck crossing. I don't know.
There was a story. It was somebody, I can't remember.
A tattoo artist from Silverdale.
Yes. Was going into Canada?
I think so.
And he shot a border guard who was in her booth, shot her in the neck.
And then shot himself.
And then shot himself.
Pulled ahead and then shot himself.
Yeah.
I still have no explanation for what he was doing.
I don't know if he planned that out. I mean, is it the kind of thing where, oh shit, what did I just do? I better kill myself? Or is this like, I'm going to wait in the border for 20 minutes? I don't know.
I watched the news report about it. It seemed inexplicable what he was doing or what he was up to.
Had they pulled him over to check his vehicle or something?
My understanding was just pulled up to the booth there and then shot the border guard and then tried to get through or something.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah, very awkward.
Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. I know you're excited because it is time for Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. This week, there's an interesting story that I liked. It's not really celebrity news exactly, but I don't know if you heard about the massive art heist in Rotterdam, the museum in Rotterdam.
This just happened?
Just happened recently. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, I haven't heard about this.
There was a museum in Rotterdam. Basically, it was a smash and grab. It was like 3 a.m. Some thieves drove right up to the back door, broke in the back door, pulled like Picasso's, Matisse, and Monet's off the wall, and ran out again. The cops were there within 5 minutes, and they were already gone. And of course, there's all this like, what was with the security there? Was there any security there?
Because if you watch movies about things like this, of course, it's a lot of like
it's like
good-looking,
Ocean's
suave
11,
guys.
and they
have to plan it out, very sophisticated. A lot of
bypassing
experts,
the alarm system.
They're like experts at being able to like jump over walls, or people that can like rappel from things.
Yeah, they're
people
hanging
that can
from
like
wires.
Computer experts. These guys just basically smashed through the window and went in and took it.
Smashed the back door open, took a bunch of paintings, and then ran away again.
I don't know if they're going to make a movie
and the
about
cops
this
are
one.
clueless. They have no idea. Like, what are we going to do? And
it was the approach they weren't ready for, maybe.
Yeah. Well, and they said that they didn't have any live security guards there because the security guards would have been instructed not to do anything anyway.
Yeah, the way security guards are all over the Western world.
This never makes any sense to me. But yeah. So they got millions of dollars worth of art, and now they have to try to sell that art.
Difficult.
And that's the thing that always strikes me whenever I hear about some massive art heist. You have a Monet or a Picasso, people know what that is. It's not like, look at this great painting. Oh, I'll give you $3 million for it.
You take it to a West Virginia swap meet, like the
I guess,
like
and get
the,
$7.
Renoir,
yeah, I put it in the grab bag.
Theoretically, there's supposed to be like rich people that have like compounds,
illicit art,
that just put them up on their walls, right, and enjoy them themselves,
right,
and have their friends come and look at them, but nobody else knows they have them.
Yeah.
How many people can there be that do that?
I don't know.
That's the thing, right?
There's not. I mean, I guess you could sell it at a huge discount to somebody and hope. I don't know if you have fences or somebody who can actually move it. But if these people just on a spur of a moment were getting drunk on, where was this, Amsterdam, Grolsch or something, and decided, hey, let's go steal some art, and they ran and did it without any forethought, then they're fucked. But
it's the provenance of the art is like, when you're selling it or you're dealing with it in any way, you've got to have that stuff covered, right?
You would
just
think so.
From the fact of like it maybe being a forgery.
Yeah.
Just who owns this piece of art? You have to have all that things covered.
Well, I was reading this article. Once I heard about the story, I was trying to do some research on it. And there's an article on, I guess it was just through the Associated Press, when they were talking about the difficulty of selling stolen art.
But this is true of all like stolen goods, right?
Well, it's things
you never
that,
get like really that much for anything.
Yeah, the retail for stolen art or stolen anything, you're getting pennies on the dollar.
Just like you're getting the retail for anything that's used is very small.
This article I was reading on Associated Press, it was saying basically straight cash transactions are very rare for high-profile things that are recognizable art. Well, and they say that they either see the artwork being recovered very quickly or never, basically, or maybe decades later.
So people just take it and like hide it somewhere.
They were pointing to a 22-year-old theft of $300 million in works from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. That case is still unsolved, and none of the 12 paintings have ever been recovered. So they do think...
this one, that's actually a famous one. You know about that one?
Yeah.
They actually left the areas where the art was taken up on the wall. There's like blank spaces, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they've never found the paintings again. They said in other cases, there's been other cases where a British woman had a boarder give her a painting, and later on she brought it in to try to find out how much it's worth, and found out it was like a multi-million-dollar masterwork. And so it was just some guy who couldn't move it. He's like, all right, here you go, old woman. And this happens a lot. Actually, the famous painting, The Scream, was stolen
like 4 times, right?
Yeah, it's been stolen a lot. But it was stolen from an Oslo museum in 2004, recovered in 2006. The police have never said what had happened to it, but they said that in the 2 years between when it was stolen and when it was recovered, it had sustained water damage and tears, and apparently that's not a sign of a theft commissioned by a connoisseur. So if one of your fabled rich dudes who has their little compound with they ask people to go steal things and they display them, but this guy probably just like, The Scream, and took it and then was like out on the street, you want to buy this? Come on. People are like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it's a silly process, really. It's not a really good plan to make a lot of money. I know I heard a couple weeks ago, we have some friends that are interested in the art business, and someone at the Tate Modern in London actually went up to, I think it was a Rothko, and just started writing things on it.
Yeah, I heard about that.
With a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Which makes about as much sense. I mean, at least you're getting in the news that way.
I just want to destroy something beautiful. Well, I don't know, Rothko, if that's beautiful, but...
Just a big blob of orange or something. But, so, I mean,
but I guess
notoriety.
It's the kind of thing where you don't get a huge amount of jail time, even if you're caught. So it's kind of, the rewards could be rich if you've got connections, and otherwise, meh. Because it's burglary. It's not murder, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's grand
larceny. Yes.
Ooh, she doesn't look good.
No, she never does. We're looking at a story of Lindsay Lohan. I don't know if any of our listeners have been aware of the familial problems that Lindsay Lohan has been facing lately.
You not?
There was this weird bullshit with her mom where she called the police. She was apparently claimed that her mother was on coke and causing some sort of disturbance. And now, most recently, police officers were called to Lohan's Beverly Hills residence on Friday afternoon in an attempt to kick her dad, Michael, and a team he had gathered off her property.
A team?
Apparently, her dad had rounded up a big group of people to try to have an intervention for Lohan because he says that she's fallen off the wagon and she's doing drugs again. And she got home and saw all these people and called the cops and made them leave.
But the thing is, you look at that and you go, oh, it's very kind of him to do that. But this guy is dirt, and all he cares about is getting money.
You don't know. There's so many weird machinations and backstabbing and strange bullshit going on. There's the only family, like celebrity family, that I think isn't horrible is maybe Britney Spears' family, because I
did see something this week about them, like a lawsuit involving them.
I have that story later. It's this guy who believes that he's entitled to 15% of Britney Spears' earnings is suing the family. Her family actually took steps to make her go to rehab, to put a conservatorship over her. And it seems like they're not in it for the money. Like maybe they're in it to try to make sure that there is still some money at some point.
They're preserving the estate, though, right?
But Lohan's family, it's a little iffy. But basically, it just seems like... I can't remember how old she was when she became like 12 or 13.
Yeah, she's very young. She's in the Parent Trap.
So you're reliant on your parents, and they're the ones managing your career for the most part, and they get used to a certain taste, and then you get to a certain age. And if you're a crazy, erratic person like Lindsay Lohan anyway, then I'm sure they feel somewhat justified in shoving their noses in all the time, but...
Well, and if she's your meal ticket and she's not working, you also feel like you're going to take a lot of steps to make that happen.
Which brings us to the Britney Spears case. It's actually... There's a lawsuit that Spears' former manager Sam Lufty has brought against Spears and her parents, and during the proceedings, lawyers for Spears' father told jurors Friday that the singer's family went to heroic efforts to save her during a well-chronicled public meltdown that included shaving her head and other bizarre behavior. Lufty is saying that he was the one trying to save her and that her family was only in it for the money. Of course, he's the one trying to sue for millions of dollars in earnings that he says he's entitled to. But basically, the only thing interesting about the story is that there's just all sorts of details about her erratic behavior coming out. And when Jamie Spears, her father, had finally...
Wait, isn't Jamie Spears her sister?
No, it's her father.
What's her sister's name?
I don't know.
She's also kind of a singer, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or trying to be. When he finally got her court-ordered into rehab, that came after months of erratic behavior, including shaving her head, speaking in a British accent, attacking a car with an umbrella, and other bizarre incidents. She also lost custody of her 2 sons with ex-husband Kevin Federline. But Lufty is saying that he actually purchased drug-sniffing dogs and had them going through her home all the time to prevent her from taking drugs, and that he found amphetamines and crystal meth in her apartment. And I don't know. It's just... it's a huge mess. And she's actually having some kind of weird comeback now, being an
X Factor
judge and stuff. Yeah.
I've been seeing commercials for that, too.
Yeah. Flavor Flav released from Las Vegas jail.
Oh, didn't we have something about him? What did he do?
He was involved in a domestic violence dispute. He's accused of throwing his fiancée to the floor and wielding knives as he chased and threatened to kill her 17-year-old son.
Whoa, that's weird.
Oh,
he still got the clock going, though.
Yeah, he still has the giant clock. I like how he's keeping rolling with that.
Well, that's how you know, because if you saw that guy walking down the street, you wouldn't know it was Flavor
it's an
Flav.
old black dude.
Oh, wait, he's got a giant clock. Yeah, it's Flavor Flav.
There you go. Next story.
An excited Drake, quote, "I got my high school diploma," unquote. I don't know if that's an actual quote. You know what I mean?
I think it is.
But it's, why would you say that? If people are like approaching you, asking you what's happening at the ceremony, you go, "I got my high school diploma."
I guess he was performing and he had just earned his high school diploma, so he excitedly told the crowd, "I got my high school diploma." He's 25 years old. Better late than never.
Is he really?
Yep.
How good for him. Does it have any details about how he did this? Did he get the Canadian equivalent of a GED?
He took a small break from music and spent some time going back to high school. I don't know if he actually... I know he is Canadian, but I don't know if he went back to a Canadian, like, Degrassi Junior High or Degrassi High School.
Huh?
And got his... well, he was on Degrassi.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He was on Degrassi, and he shows up as a 24-year-old going to Degrassi. People are like, wow, this is blowing my mind.
Here's a story that nobody in America will know anything about.
Oh, good.
But I found it slightly disturbing. Have you ever heard of the BBC show that was on for decades called Jim Will Fix It?
No, but I've heard of this.
Jimmy Savile. It was
he's a pedophile, right?
Yeah.
I think, well, there's a Arsenal Football Club's manager.
Okay.
Many of the opponents of that team sing songs about him being a pedophile.
No.
And they sing about him being like Jimmy.
That's nice.
It's a common song, I understand.
Well, he was a host of a show that I think it was from the mid-'70s to the mid-'90s. It was a show called Jim Will Fix It, where they'd get little kids. They'd come in and be like, "I want to dance with Bananarama." And Jim will fix it for you to dance with Bananarama. So Bananarama would come on, and the kids would dance with Bananarama.
Did you have real problems, like I'm hooked on like heroin or anything?
Well, I think it's easier to get them to dance with Bananarama.
Yeah. They're like,
it's like, I want to go to the moon. Like, no.
Well, you get to dance with Bananarama.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that. But basically, he died in October of last year, but now all these hundreds and hundreds of accusations are coming out where he basically was raping and raping and raping for decades.
Jesus.
All these underage girls. He was a huge supporter of various charities, a children's hospital, all these things where basically he had access to vulnerable children at all times. And it's the same kind of Jerry Sandusky bullshit where if somebody really, really loves children, watch out.
Or if you have like a youth camp like Jerry Sandusky did for like child football players and stuff and are always having, you know what I mean? Doesn't necessarily mean you're a pedophile, but it does mean that
it doesn't
people should keep their eyes on you, maybe.
I guess that there are over 400 accusations that the police are following up, and now people are looking into the BBC to see if they knew what was going on.
It's got to be, right? Because how can this go on for that long without people covering it up?
Apparently he raped everyone who was ever on that show.
Jesus.
Jim, can you fix it so I can be raped by somebody who is 67? Yes. Yes, we can.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so that's nice. And with that, I think we'll end Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show.
On that note...
This has been Celebrity Minute on the Warren and Bradley Show. They wander the streets, scavenging for loose change and discarded cigarette butts.
Spare $1
and give me a motherfucking cigarette.
I ran out of gas ways back. I got any meth?
You smoke weed, don't you?
Good boozing and cut.
I could use some change.
They may be mentally unstable and deserving of our charity, but that doesn't mean they can't be selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
For this edition of Street Freak of the Week on the Warren and Bradley Show,
We have, it's a little dark, Warren, and I don't know, most of our Street Freaks of the Week, it's the lighter side of homelessness, where these jolly homeless people do something that's kind of amusing, a little endearing, they do something funny, we all laugh.
we laugh because we don't want to cry.
We don't want to cry. This one, it's a little dark. It's an update, actually, on a story that we had weeks ago. I'm not even sure which episode it was, but a listener had written in, listener Zach, had written in about a homeless person who he used to encounter often in Seattle, who used to pick up used condoms off the street.
This,
you remember this guy?
Yeah.
And we were all amused. Ha ha ha, used condoms. What's he going to do with those condoms? Well, it turns out that this person has recently been arrested on a cold case from Maine from 1976, the grisly murder of an old woman.
Dear God.
Here we go. Listener Zach sent this story in to me. The headline, this is actually from a British paper, which is funny, but the Mail Online, by gum, man arrested for 1976 cold case murder thanks to DNA evidence collected by cops in phony chewing gum survey. Here's the picture of the man.
Oh, geez.
Gary Robb. Gary Robb is a 63-year-old homeless person who is well known, apparently, around Seattle. Actually, there was a story from The Stranger, which is a local Seattle kind of music, cultural magazine.
Alternative Weekly, yeah.
Alternative Weekly, where they have a story about a homeless man remembers his friend, John T. Williams, where basically they're interviewing Gary Robb and talking about how one of his friends, another homeless man, was shot to death by Seattle police, and he was talking about, oh, how sad it is. And they kind of go into Robb's story of how he was a Vietnam vet and was a prisoner of war and escaped from a bamboo cage with a rock or something like that.
Whoa.
And I don't know if any of this is substantiated, but that's what he told the stranger anyway. Now it turns out, in 1976, there was a woman named Mrs. Kimball who suffered 23 stab wounds to the chest, 2 stab wounds to the abdomen, and 16 cuts and lacerations to the head. She ran a boarding house where homeless people would come.
That's a dangerous job.
Yeah, where people would come and stay with her cheaply. She was found dead in her house one day. There was signs of a struggle, blood all over. And at the time, they didn't have DNA evidence, but they've recently reopened the case and took DNA that wasn't hers from some of the blood samples that were,
At the scene?
At the scene. And Mr. Robb, who at the time lived in Maine, was one of her boarders and who was last seen painting her steps.
So he has been kind of a suspect ever since
He was kind of a
76.
suspect, but they didn't really have any evidence because at the time there was no DNA evidence. So years and years later, they got this DNA, they tracked him down. They had the Seattle Police Department do a fake survey where they had chewing gum. They went up to him and try this chewing gum. And he went, and he put it in his mouth, sucked on it for a while. And I guess they were like, okay, spit it out into my hand now. And then they put it in a little baggie and they went and tested it. And by gum, it was him.
By gum, indeed.
So now he's being extradited to Maine to stand charges for the brutal, grisly murder of this woman.
That's some good police work right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
It's very clever, but kind of sad that we didn't know the name of this person. To us, it was just a listener had written in with the amusing anecdote about a homeless man collecting used condoms off the street and laughing and putting them in a plastic baggie.
I'll say this. I hope this doesn't start a trend.
I
hope
start
seeing the homeless people, Street
gay
Freaks of the
pirate
Week.
homeless man isn't arrested for some heinous crime at some point, because then I'll start to feel bad. But you have to imagine that a lot of these homeless people do have some sort of criminal background,
Well, we've talked about this before. A lot of the homeless people around are pretty safe.
Yeah.
Because if you're mentally ill and you're violent, usually at some point you act out and you're caught and then you're incarcerated.
You get weeded out pretty quickly.
So you get weeded out. So if you're pretty peaceful and you're just hanging out and you're a little weird, you kind of get by.
But that being said, a lot of the crimes in Bellingham, a lot of the rapes and things like that, and assaults are often homeless on homeless crime. So you're safe as a normal, maybe. But if you're like a 43-year-old meth addict woman sleeping out in the park, you might get raped by another homeless
that's just
person.
like a group of victims that's difficult.
Who victimize each other.
It's the victims are like difficult to track.
Right.
You don't get a lot of reporting.
Right.
It's also true as like we've talked about with the serial killers going after prostitutes.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody like looking out for the prostitutes,
Right.
so it's easier to go on that way. It's a matter of, you know, you can get away with a lot of things if you're willing to prey on like the lowest people in society.
Right.
Which is pretty dark.
Which is what I do, and nobody ever complains, because you steal from a homeless man. It's like, he stole $40 from me. And I was like, yeah, right.
He's crazy.
Right, homeless guy. And they could even pick me out of a police lineup. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
He's homeless.
He's homeless. Look at him. This guy had a died...
Is that the lesson you took from this, that you should victimize the homeless?
Well, I think I already knew that. This is just more confirmation of the fact. So, an update on Street Freak of the Week. It wasn't something that actually happened to me.
There are going to be a lot more condoms just sitting around the U District, I guess.
I guess if you need to use condoms, that's where to look.
Oh, it was dark.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
No. Congratulations, Seattle Police Department, and wherever in Maine he was, that police department.
You have just apprehended the Street Freak of the Week.
You're the Warren and Bradley Show Crime Stopper of the Week.
Good job.
Well, you didn't really stop anything. It's been 32 years.
Crime catcher. Criminal catcher.
Our hats are off to you, Mr. Homeless Man, because you've been selected as the Warren and Bradley Show Street Freak of the Week.
So I was in the coffee shop yesterday, actually. I was purchasing my pound of coffee.
Yeah.
And I'd actually gone in there after I got off work, so I was in my, construction gear, which normally I have a certain separation between my work life and my social life.
Yeah.
And the coffee shop is the kind of place I would go to in my social life.
Yeah.
And so I was in there in my construction gear, and it was hilarious because everyone was giving me these sidelong glances like, oh, what is this guy doing in here? And is he homeless? Is he
it's that construction homeless borderline thing there.
And I was in the line behind this girl who's, I don't know, probably 22 or 23, and she kept giving me these sidelong glances, kind of darting looks over in my direction, then looking away again really quick, and I would look over at her when she did it, because it's like I'm intimidating people or something, because, what's he gonna do? What's he doing in here? And then I just bought my beans, or whatever. But there was this guy in the line after me, and actually I wanted a blueberry muffin, and so I asked the person there, is this a gluten-free muffin? She's like, no, I'm sorry, it's not. I was like, okay, good. Give me extra gluten and extra sugar. And she was like, oh, okay, ha ha ha, and laughed and gave me the muffin. And then the guy in line behind me was like, oh, they're not gluten-free. Oh, I can't eat gluten. Gluten just kills me. And it's this thing now in our society. I don't know when this started happening, because when we were kids, being a wuss...
Yeah.
It was something that was frowned upon.
Yeah.
You wanted to be tough. You wanted to be resilient. And that was what was celebrated. If you could withstand pain, if you could withstand anything, it was like a good thing. To be stoic.
Well, to be stoic, exactly. Because that's the thing, right? That's the idea that you try to ingrain, especially in males, is the fact that, like, bad things are going to happen to you throughout your life. Don't be a whiner about it.
Right.
You just, like, buckle under and you, like, deal with it. And you're tough. You know what I mean?
Tough. Be tough. There used to be this American toughness.
You don't act like a spaz about every little thing that happens.
And now it's like, I'm allergic to this. Oh, this gives me gas. No, it's this thing. Now our society celebrates being a fucking pussy. And when did this happen? Why did it happen? Have you noticed this happening?
It's just the thing, like... We've talked about this before, about how people have celiac disease.
Yeah.
Some people have peanut allergies.
Like 1/2 of 1% of people have these things.
If you don't have a legitimate, like, celiac problem, or you don't actually have a peanut allergy, or you don't have any of these, a doctor hasn't actually diagnosed you with these things,
which are very specific things.
Yeah, why do you want to adopt that as part of your persona?
I don't know. It's celebrated now. You being a pussy, a wuss, a little piece of shit is celebrated in our society.
And it's strange, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, I can't handle that. I can't handle this. I can't handle anything. And it's like, you could handle all those things.
Right.
What's going on is you thinking you can't handle them for the most part.
I'm I'm young. I'm a young man.
Yeah.
I feel like some weird relic from the past, from the 1950s or something.
Yeah.
And I was not alive in the 1950s.
No.
I was not alive in the 60s. My whole life, basically my daily existence is putting up with being horribly uncomfortable all the time.
Yeah.
My job entails me being uncomfortable from when I start work to when I end work.
Yeah.
It's not like horrible sharp pain the entire time, even though it does involve some of that. But in the winter, I'm freezing, my hands are numb, I'm getting rained on, snow. In the summer, I'm sweating and hot and horribly uncomfortable. I'm just doing these repetitive physical activities that make me sore, and it's like shit that the little fake celiac in the coffee shop, if I were to put him where I am on a daily basis, he would, oh my God, this is horrible, and he would quit. He would stop immediately, because our society is about never being uncomfortable ever.
Yeah. What was I going to That's my train of thought there.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this is the thing. People have talked about this a lot, about where the way the culture's going with children, especially. Nobody loses a sporting event.
Right.
And, everyone's a winner all the time.
Right.
And we have to constantly praise everyone, even when they're not doing anything that's praiseworthy.
Yeah.
Because we have to worry about how they feel about themselves and stuff. Which I think once you get a little older and you come into adulthood at some point, maybe that's just the way you look at life at that point. And you need positive affirmation all the time. Because I know there's the thing where employers feel like they have to praise 20-somethings now.
Right.
Because that's what they've been getting, that praise for
From their
everything they've done their
parents
entire
and from
life.
all
And
the
if they don't
teachers
get
and-
a nonstop stream of praise for everything they do at their job,
Yeah.
then they feel like they're not validated in some way. That definitely is a cultural shift. But I think, in a sense, I think it's good what people are trying to do. It's the sense that, we want people to feel, confident and good and be able to deal with their feelings and stuff. But it kind of,
But it actually stunts them emotionally, because that doesn't instill confidence. What instills confidence is struggling and succeeding, not being told that you're doing well when you're not doing well. That gives you a false sense of confidence. And then when you actually come up against a real obstacle, you don't know how to deal with it, because you've never been forced to expand. If you're always told that whatever you do is right, then when you do something wrong, you can't deal with being wrong, and you can't deal with changing and growing and learning how to actually approach these problems. And when you're constantly celebrating being for God's sake, John is writing me a text about something. Now I lost my train of thought.
damn IT guy, John.
Fuck IT guy, John. What the hell
If
was I
you're
talking
always
about?
being praised for everything.
If you're always being praised for everything, if mediocrity is constantly being celebrated, then it's impossible for you to ever first approach a problem and know how to surmount it, and then also appreciate the feeling of, it's like if you're always at 70 degrees, you're always well fed, you're always warm, you're always feel emotionally secure, you are not a real human. Because being a real human is about being uncomfortable, facing problems, learning that it's not the end of the world. That's the other thing, too, is these people who are constantly coddled, if something does go wrong, they freak the fuck out, because they don't know that, okay, this is a problem, I will deal with this problem.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, what's going on? What do I do?
Well, this reminds me of, I watched the movie Melancholia, actually, this week.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a Lars von Trier movie. As listeners know, I do not respect Lars von Trier as a director. But this is actually a pretty good movie. And I was reading about some of the origins of the film, and it was getting to the point where he was being treated for depression, apparently, and the psychiatrist or psychologist was telling him that depressed people handle adversity a lot more well than really happy, positive, upbeat people, because they, in a sense, always expect things to go that way.
Right.
So they're always very calm in those situations.
Yeah.
Which I think was the inspiration for Kirsten Dunst's character in the movie. When the world's coming to the end, she seems pretty fine with it, right?
Yeah.
And everyone else, it's more the happy, well-adjusted people are not having a good time with it. But it's true that it's just it's a balance, right? I think looking back on how our society was when people were completely closed off to their feelings, we're not dealing with their anger or their grief, and we're always just trying to be as stoic as possible at all times, was leading to a lot of unhealthy behavior at the same time, right? It was leading to a lot of stuff where people probably were treating each other not very well. They weren't thinking about what they were doing. They weren't respecting their own feelings or other people's feelings at all, which is completely valid. You need to do those things a little bit. But at the same time, you need to realize that there are a lot of challenges in life, and being a whiner, being a wuss, a pussy, as you'll say, it doesn't help you at all.
No.
And I know we look at now, we do Celebrity Minute, and a bunch of people being whiners, being like ridiculous,
self-absorbed,
like
complaining about
it's sort of
everything.
rewarded, right?
Yeah.
Because people get attention. And I'm sure people that complain about their muffin are getting attention
That's
too.
the thing.
But it's not good attention.
Exactly. And there doesn't seem to be any differentiation between good attention and bad attention now. It's just attention. It's, look at me, I'm a piece of shit. Look at how much I complain about everything. Look at how I can't do anything. And I need help. I don't want help. You know, like, I don't want people to think that I am inept.
Yeah.
I want to be competent, and so I strive to be competent in things. If I start a job, I'm not, I can't do it. Oh my God. I'm like, no, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how to do it because I want to be competent in other people's eyes, because to me, that is a desirable quality to have. Competency. I hate the fact that people are so helpless about... how many men I know who don't know how to drive a fucking stick?
Hey, I don't know how to drive a stick.
I know. What's wrong with you?
I would drive a stick if I needed to drive a stick.
Well, you don't drive, so it's not really an issue.
That's true.
But there's guys who are like... I had a friend a while ago who was going to borrow my truck to move some things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I can't drive a stick.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you learn how to drive a stick? It's like, come on. You want to be a fucking wuss? Come on, drive a stick.
As a person that doesn't drive a stick, I don't think that that's necessarily a wussy thing.
It is.
Just if you don't have a stick, you're not going to learn how to drive a stick.
It's something that you should just know how to do.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay, here comes fascist Brad again, who wants to eliminate take the people to camps that can't drive sticks.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure if I had a stick and I had it for 2 days, I'd probably figure out how to drive the stick.
Right.
I understand the concept of how to
Well,
do
and
it.
that's the thing. That's the difference between you and the person I'm talking about, who I hope doesn't listen to the show, is that if you were forced to, if you wanted to borrow my truck and you needed my truck,
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, it's a stick. Maybe you would learn how to drive the stick.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh, no, it's impossible. I can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or else I just wouldn't, I probably wouldn't ever move anything either. I guess that's a different way I handle things like that.
Yeah.
I would just throw something away rather than move it.
Right.
Too much trouble.
Yeah, let's try to be a little more stoic. Let's try to be a little more can-do. Let's not celebrate mediocrity. Let's not celebrate all our weaknesses. Let's buck up a little bit, people.
Yeah.
Bunch of pussies. Come on.
Because ultimately, that's no way to live.
No.
Just sitting around whining.
And eventually a country that isn't filled with pussies is going to take over our country. We used to kick everybody's ass all the time.
What?
I don't know, at everything. We had that sort of... that was I was watching a documentary recently about World War I, and there was this French girl who had kept a diary throughout the entire war. And she was talking about when the Americans finally showed up, they just seemed like they were superhuman, these giant men, all corn-fed, Midwestern dudes.
Well, that's true because they had been eating corn rather than the French people and German people who hadn't been eating anything for 3 years.
But just this mentality, like, we weren't necessarily good at war yet because our military was kind of iffy at that point, but we just had this attitude, all right, here we come, and we're Americans. And we kicked ass. Well, actually, we got our asses kicked for a
militarism
while.
now is coming out of you.
I want to shoot people.
I know. This is this rage.
It's not rage.
It's not healthy.
Well, it's healthier than being a celiac.
Well, this is true. No, I'm not sure about. I'm not sure if being like angry all the time.
I'm not angry.
Is better than
I'm not angry
You're very angry. But that's also another thing about being stoic, though. Is the other thing about being stoic is like not wanting to like eliminate entire groups of people from the face of the earth or attack people in a warlike way.
I'm not saying I want to kill you. And the other thing is, too, I am stoic, but in this particular venue, this is when I bitch about things.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Uh-huh.
That's my job.
Okay.
Because on a daily basis, I don't bitch about things.
No.
It's at the end of the Warren and Bradley
I think it's
show.
probably the end of the show.
All right. This is one of your hosts, Bradley Victor.
This is the other host, Morvan.
Saying,
don't coddle people. It turns them into
pussies. All right.
This has been the Warren and Bradley Show, brought to you by Warren Van and Bradley Victor. For podcast news and information, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/Warren and Bradley. Follow the show on Twitter at Warren and Brad. Subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. For episode archives and episode pictures, go to warrenandbradley.com, and to contact the show, write to podcast@warrenandbradley.com.